Can you believe the betrayal I faced? My own mother, stood in court and tried to force me to pay child support for a baby that wasn't even mine. Her exact words? DNA doesn't matter. Family is family. But oh, did that come back to bite her in the most spectacular way. You see, my mom has always desperately wanted a daughter. It was her dream, a constant theme throughout my childhood. So when she and my dad found out they were expecting, her excitement was off the charts. But then they learned it was going to be a boy, me. And just like that, everything changed. She was crushed. And she didn't exactly hide it. She's told me that story countless times over the years, always making sure I knew I wasn't the daughter she'd hoped for. My parents did want more kids, mainly because Mom was still holding on to that dream of a little girl. But life had other plans. After I was born, she had severe health complications that eventually made it impossible for her to carry another child. The idea of never conceiving again was devastating for her. I can only imagine the emotional weight of that loss, a weight I think she still carries. It must have been incredibly painful to realize her dream of a daughter would never come true. In the years that followed, her yearning for a daughter only seemed to intensify. I'd watch her dote on my female cousins, lavishing them with an affection that felt like the maternal love she'd always wanted to give. Extra gifts, endless attention. There was a clear difference in how she treated them compared to me. Honestly, for most of my life, it didn't really bother me. I just accepted it. I knew she loved me, and that was enough. Until Sophia entered the picture. Sophia was the daughter of my mom's long-lost best friend from high school. When Mom reconnected with her and met Sophia for the first time, she was instantly fixated. Sophia was beautiful, and in my mom's eyes, she was the perfect match for me. At the time, I was single, and Mom had been relentless in trying to set me up with various women, but nothing ever stuck. This time, though, she was determined. She wouldn't stop talking about how stunning and wonderful Sophia was, how perfect we'd be together. It became an obsession. For weeks, I endured her constant nagging until, eventually, I caved. I agreed to a blind date. Honestly, more to shut her up than out of any real interest. I just wanted her to stop talking about Sophia. When I finally met Sophia, she was exactly as my mom had described, incredibly beautiful. But as the evening wore on, and we actually talked, I realized there wasn't much substance beneath that beauty. I always try to understand what drives someone, their goals, their dreams. When I asked Sophia what she wanted to do with her life, her answer surprised me. She wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting to raise a family, but at that point in my life, I had completely different ambitions. I wasn't even thinking about kids. I expected to be with someone who had aspirations beyond just starting a family. So, naturally, I asked her what she planned to do before having children. Her response left me even more perplexed. She just wanted to be a stay-at-home wife. She explained that her mother had always been a stay-at-home mom until her dad passed away, and Sophia believed it was the secret to their successful marriage. While I respected her family's path, it just wasn't what I was looking for. I wanted someone with passion, purpose, whether in a career or a personal pursuit. The idea of someone wanting to be a stay-at-home spouse from the get-go just didn't align with my values. Plus, Sophia and her mom were living with her uncle, who covered all their expenses because her mother still didn't want to work. After that first date, I was undeniably disappointed. I'd gone in with low expectations, mainly to appease my mom, but I knew for sure this wasn't it. My mom, of course, was not pleased. She was visibly upset, as if I'd personally wronged her by not giving Sophia a real chance. She insisted I hadn't truly gotten to know her. But my mind was made up. I told her as firmly as I could to let it go. I should have known better. My mother doesn't give up easily, especially when she sets her heart on something. Not long after, Mom invited me over. Normal enough, right? But when I arrived, Sophia was there too. Turns out, Mom had taken it upon herself to invite Sophia over to force another meeting. Once I walked in, both my parents practically ran out of the house with these mischievous smiles, saying, "Enjoy your date." I was mortified. Judging by Sophia's face, she felt the same. We just stood there awkwardly, neither of us knowing what to say. It was like being on a blind date you never agreed to, right in your own parents' living room, with no escape. After a few minutes of silence, I could have bolted, but I didn't want to embarrass her. She was as much a victim of my mother's matchmaking as I was. So, instead of fleeing, we exchanged awkward laughs, acknowledging the bizarre situation, and sat down. I figured, since we were stuck, I might as well ask her more about herself. She admitted that she liked me after our first date and was confused when I never called. I gently told her that while she was kind and beautiful, our life goals seemed too different, especially her desire to be a stay-at-home wife. But then, Sophia clarified. She said her intention wasn't just to sit around doing nothing. She started talking about her volunteer work at the church, how she dedicated her days to children and those in need. This gave me a whole new perspective. I started to see another side of her, a genuinely warm, kind person, or at least that's how she portrayed herself. While not career-driven, she seemed to have found purpose in caring for others. That level of generosity, I thought, was rare. So, despite my lingering doubts, I decided to take a leap and ask her out again. Sophia and I dated for about a year before we got engaged. I'd also been promoted at work, which boosted my income and gave me a sense of stability. I felt financially comfortable enough to support her. But the timing of the proposal wasn't entirely my decision. Both our mothers, especially mine, had been subtly pushing us. Sophia's biological clock is ticking, they'd say, even though neither of us had immediate plans for kids. The pressure was constant. When we finally got engaged, my mother, true to form, took charge of the wedding planning. She insisted on a grand ceremony, sparing no expense, offering to pay for the entire thing herself. She was determined to make Sophia's dream wedding come true, as if it were her own daughter's. It was generous, yes, but also a little overwhelming. The ceremony was incredibly lavish, much grander than I'd anticipated, but seeing Sophia so happy made it all worth it. After the wedding and honeymoon, I dove back into my demanding job. Sophia moved into my place and, just as we discussed, fully embraced her role as a stay-at-home wife. She wasn't idle, though. She continued her volunteer work at a church in our town. But it wasn't long before I started noticing things about Sophia's routine that seemed off. Since we'd never lived together, I was learning all these new details about her daily habits. One thing that really stood out was her insistence that I send money to her mother every month. She argued we had more than enough, and as a good son-in-law, it was my duty. I found it odd, especially since it was never brought up before marriage. I'd assumed her uncle covered her mother's needs. Secondly, Sophia would often go out and come home really late. I expected that as a stay-at-home wife, she'd be home more, handling household things. Instead, she always seemed rushed when I got back from work, frantically cooking dinner late in the evening. When I asked why she was so late, she'd tell me she was helping someone, a homeless person, a kid in need. I didn't want to discourage her, but I thought there was an understanding that as a homemaker, she'd handle certain responsibilities. But it wasn't happening. Our meals were late, laundry piled up, the house was rarely cleaned. I tried not to make a big deal out of it at first, but frustration grew. I started having calm conversations with her about balancing her volunteer work and home responsibilities. Each time, she promised she'd change, do better. But the pattern never did. Same story. Late dinners, undone chores, excuses about how busy she'd been helping others. One weekend, when she was out volunteering again, I decided to surprise her at the church. Maybe I could spend some time with her, even lend a hand. When I arrived and asked for Sophia, the people there seemed confused. After asking several different people, it became chillingly clear. My wife had never volunteered there. No one knew who she was. A knot formed in my stomach. For months, she'd been telling me she spent her days at this church. Now I was hearing she'd never set foot in the place. I tried to convince myself I'd made a mistake, that I misunderstood the name, or maybe she volunteered nearby. That evening, when she came home, I played it cool. I casually asked about her day. She launched into her usual explanation, detailing all the people she'd helped. After she finished, I asked her directly, "So, What church were you volunteering at today?
Just to see.
Sure enough, she repeated the exact name of the church where I'd been told she didn't work. That's when it hit me. Something was seriously, terribly wrong. Sophia had been lying to me, not just once, but repeatedly, about where she spent her time. It wasn't a misunderstanding. She was deliberately deceiving me.
But why?
What was she really doing all day? I was determined to get to the bottom of this. The very next day, instead of heading to work, I parked my car a few feet from our house, out of sight. I was going to follow her. I wanted her to prove me wrong, to head to the church like she always said. I was mentally preparing to confess my doubt, apologize for being insecure. But what unfolded next? I could never have prepared for it. An hour after I left, I saw her walk out the front door. But instead of the conservative clothes she usually wore, she was in shorts and a tank top, an outfit I'd never seen her in. I watched as she got into her car, but instead of driving toward the church, she took off in the opposite direction. My heart started racing. I followed, keeping a few cars behind. It's an errand, I told myself. She's meeting someone from the church. Maybe. Eventually, she pulled into a quiet neighborhood and parked in front of a house I didn't recognize. Not her mother's place, not any cousin I knew. My stomach dropped as I watched a man walk out to greet her. He embraced her and then, to my utter shock, they kissed. Right there in the driveway. They held each other, arms wrapped around one another, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I couldn't breathe. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion, except I was the one crashing, and there was nothing I could do. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Sophia and the man walked inside, still wrapped around each other, as if this was something they'd done 100 times before. I felt sick. This wasn't a random fling. This wasn't a one-time mistake. The comfort between them, their interaction, it was clear this was a long-standing affair. My heart felt ripped out of my chest. All the doubts, the odd timings, the strange excuses, it all made sense. She had been living a double life, lying to me about where she spent her time, carrying on this affair right under my nose. My first instinct was to call my mother. I wanted to vent, to tell her everything, to get some comfort. But I knew if I told her, she'd call Sophia immediately, either out of anger or shock, and that would tip Sophia off. I didn't want Sophia to know I'd found out, not yet. I needed proof. Concrete evidence. So when the time came to confront her, I would have everything I needed to end this marriage. I had to be smart. For 2 weeks after that shocking discovery, I channeled all my energy into gathering evidence for the divorce. I met with a lawyer, ensuring my assets would be protected. We didn't have a prenup, and I wasn't about to let her betrayal leave me in financial ruin. The evening I finally confronted Sophia felt surreal. I sat her down calmly and told her I knew about her affair. She looked shocked at first, even tried to deny it. But I was ready. One by one, I presented her with all the evidence, photos of her with the man, screenshots of their text messages I'd found on her phone, records of the days she'd lied about being at church. With every piece of evidence, she knew there was no talking her way out of it. Finally, begrudgingly, she confessed. She admitted the man was her high school boyfriend, which I'd already figured out after doing some research and finding him on Facebook. She tried to downplay it, saying she was just being stupid, just fooling around, nothing serious. She insisted she didn't intend for things to go so far. I wasn't buying it. I looked her in the eyes and firmly told her I was divorcing her. She was stunned. I think part of her believed she could manipulate me, that I'd forgive her. But when she realized I was serious, she fought back. She begged me to reconsider, saying she could change, that we could work things out. But her pleas fell on deaf ears. I knew I'd never be able to trust her again. I calmly told her to pack her bags and leave. To make sure there were no misunderstandings or attempts to manipulate our families, I created a group chat with my parents and Sophia's mother. In it, I laid everything out. All the proof of Sophia's infidelity. Photos, texts, everything. I wanted them to know the full truth about why I was divorcing her, preventing any false narratives. I knew once the news broke, all hell would break loose, and I wasn't leaving room for misunderstandings. As expected, the reactions were intense. My mother was absolutely livid, outraged that Sophia had betrayed me. But at the same time, she and Sophia's mother couldn't help but beg me to reconsider. Despite the undeniable evidence, they pleaded with me to find it in my heart to forgive her, to give her another chance. Thankfully, my dad stood by my side. He reassured me I was making the right decision. No one, he said, should stay with a cheating partner, no matter the circumstances. He told me I deserved better and fully supported my decision to move forward with the divorce. A week after I filed, Sophia and her mother showed up at my house unexpectedly. Sophia dropped a bombshell. She was pregnant with my child. My immediate reaction was disbelief. I outright refused to accept I was the father, given her affair. Sophia's mother lashed out, accusing me of ruining her daughter's life, not accepting responsibility, divorcing Sophia so suddenly. She made me out to be the cruel one. Then my own mother doubled down. She talked about how children change everything, how a baby could bring Sophia and me closer, as if pregnancy was some magical solution to infidelity. She said Sophia promised she'd never cheat again, and I needed to consider the child's future, not just my pride. She made me feel like the bad guy for walking away from a marriage where trust was gone. When I still didn't give in, my mother, in her desperation, threatened to testify against me in court if child support came up. She said she'd make sure I paid for the baby regardless of whether it was mine. DNA doesn't matter. Family is family, she argued, implying she didn't care who the biological father was. She was determined to claim the child as her grandchild, even if it meant going against me. And that's exactly what she did. True to her word, my mother testified against me during the divorce proceedings. It was one of the most gut-wrenching betrayals of my life. My lawyer and I fought hard to make sure the court understood Sophia's infidelity, that there was a very real possibility the child wasn't mine. But my mother and Sophia's mother testified that Sophia's affair wasn't anything sexual, downplaying it as an innocent mistake. They even argued that because Sophia and I had been intimate just weeks before our separation, right around the time I discovered her affair, the baby must be mine. Thankfully, in the end, the judge ruled that they couldn't make any final decision regarding child support or paternity until after the baby was born and a proper paternity test was conducted. Only then would it be determined if I was the biological father. I was so relieved. It felt like a small victory in what had been a draining, painful process. At least now, I wouldn't be forced to support a child that might not be mine without solid proof. But my mother, Sophia, and her mother were furious with the outcome. My mother actually came up to me and said she wished I wasn't her child. She told me that if I was truly a man, I should just accept Sophia's child as mine, regardless of the paternity test. For months after that, she badmouthed me to everyone in our family, painting me as the villain who destroyed my marriage over what she insisted was just Sophia's one-time mistake. No matter how much proof I presented or how many logical arguments I made, my mother clung to her narrative, blaming me for everything. So, you can imagine the satisfaction when the day finally came for the paternity test results. Sophia had given birth to a girl this week, and we promptly had the test done. It turned out the baby did not belong to me. As expected. When I shared the results with Sophia, she broke down in tears, pleading with me to accept the child. She argued her friends and family would shun her and her daughter if I didn't step up. I felt a deep pit of sympathy for her situation. I really did. But it didn't change the fact that I was not the father. I'm sorry, but I can't do that, I told her firmly. It's no longer my responsibility. Since then, Sophia has continued to call and leave voicemails, begging me to reconsider. She's arguing that since I probably won't have kids anytime soon, I should just think of this baby as mine, even though she cheated. She even revealed that the guy she was having an affair with refused to marry her, that he was never ready to settle down, which is why she had to marry me in the first place. It's clear she wanted to use me as a cash cow while continuing her affair. Honestly, I hope she takes him to court for child support, but at this point, I just don't care anymore. I took everyone's advice and made a Facebook post to publicly announce that I am not the father of Sophia's child. I was tired of my mom supporting Sophia after everything, and frankly, I wanted to humiliate her the way she'd humiliated me for months. Well, guess what? After I made my post calling out my mom for backing Sophia, she called me absolutely furious. People had started turning on her. She accused me of betraying her, which was ironic, considering she was the one who actually backstabbed me by testifying against me in court and trying to make me pay child support. A lot of my mom's friends and relatives had actually believed her at first, but now, with the paternity test results in, it's clear my mom was wrong about Sophia. People are calling her out in the comments of my post, and to her face, telling her she needs to be a better parent to me, and that I am the actual victim here. After my mother called to yell at me, she and Dad ended up having a huge fight. He was fed up with her constantly bullying me and threatened to leave her if she didn't drop her crazy idea of forcing me to accept Sophia's child, even though it's not mine. It's been 5 months since my last update. My parents have decided to separate this past month. My mom has completely refused to change. She's even started calling herself Grandma to Sophia's baby. She's been giving Sophia money every month and even volunteers to babysit. It seems like she's finally living out her dream of having a long-lost daughter, just like she always wanted. However, my dad has grown tired of this. He feels it's borderline inappropriate and wants nothing to do with Sophia or her child. This has resulted in multiple fights where my mother has refused to take accountability. As a result, my dad has moved out and is staying with me. It truly breaks my heart that my mom is choosing to focus on my cheater ex-wife's daughter over her own family. Anyway, my dad will be talking to a lawyer this week and moving forward with the divorce. Honestly, after everything, I still find myself wondering, what would you have done in my shoes? Have you ever had family turn against you like this? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to hear what you think.